Hello everyone, this video is going to be about arrays. Arrays are great data types. They hold a bunch of things, whatever you'd like. This is just going to be an introduction to what they are. We won't go into depth. There are tons of things that you can do with arrays, but this will just be introducing kind of the concept here. So I've pre-made a little demo. So this is an array definition. So what I'm doing here is I'm defining an integer array of size 10. So I want 10 things in my array, and I'm just defining it there with an empty oops, it's empty. I am not putting anything in the array at the moment. It's just starting out as it has no value, which will initialize to 0, and we'll see that. And then I put a couple of lines here so that we can kind of see a couple of things. So one, I have this line commented out, and it is the int size of the array. The way that we do this is kind of a weird thing in C++, but you take the size of the array, so use the size of function, divide it by the size of the first thing in the array, which you'll have to forgive me. I think there's something there that will tell it, but I don't exactly remember why this gives you the correct size. But actually what this will give you, or what we're looking for, is a size t, right? So an integer can have a positive or a negative value. You could also do an unsigned int, which would have no negatives, but then the size would be limited to the size of the integer. So you could do different data type, like a char or a long, so on and so forth. But the size t is a special variable defined exactly for this kind of thing that's guaranteed to hold that size, no matter how big or small it is. So that's kind of a special thing. So that's why you see a size t there instead of one of the other integer types that you might be expecting. So we get here our size, the size of the array, which we would expect to be 10, right? That's what we see here. So we're going to confirm that that's accurate. And then I have a simple for loop here. We're just going to go, starting at 0, we go through the size of the array, and then I'm just printing out what's at that part of the array. So right here, we're referencing our array, and we're saying at this index, at the number, please tell me what is there. Now I'm going to run this, and then I'm going to explain a little bit more. It'll make a little more sense as we go. Okay, so again, I oftentimes point this out using the and here syntax so that I'm compiling and executing together. And here we go. So as you can see, we're printing this, which tells us the index, I, short for index in this case. I is also just the convention, but I and index line up nicely. And so you can see my are at 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, up to 9. All right, so that's 10 times. And as you can see, it starts out as a 0 value. That's because the ints are being defined. Well, it's an integer array, so each item in this is of the type integer, and that will default to a 0. So there are other things you could do. Let's say my other r. And let's make this one smaller. We'll say 5. And we'll say, let's do odd numbers. How about that? Is that right? Oh, we missed our 1. Okay, there we go. So now this syntax here is we've defined our array starting out with these values. Okay, so we have the type, which is an integer. Then we have an array of size 5, and then here we can say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things that we want to start out as. Right, so we want the array to have those values starting out in that order. So let's go ahead here and we'll print out. You know what? I'm going to get rid of this because that won't work because of our indexes. Let's go ahead and make a new one. And this one will also need a new size of other, and my other, and size of other. There's probably a faster way to do this, but I'm just doing this. Other, and one more other. Okay, so that should go the 5 times, right? Okay, let's take a look. Okay, there we go. So as you can see, the first index, which is counted at 0, not 1, which can be confusing if you're not used to such things. But in a lot of languages, I'd say most languages, counting starts at 0 rather than 1. Okay, so at the first position, which is 0, the index of 0, we have a 1. The next index is 3, next index is 5, and so on and so forth. So you can see how that maps here. So we defined it starting at 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So essentially that's what an array is. It is a collection of values that are held together, you know, so that they're kept together because there's some meaning or some reason that it would be good to cluster them together and treat them as a whole rather than their own individual parts. But then you can still get to their individual parts as well. So I'm going to give you another example, and this is going to be kind of silly, but we'll go with that. We'll say even 0 equals 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we're going to go here. And here. Oops. There we go. Okay, and so here, because we have the same number, we're going to, well, you know what, we can't really do it the same way because of the how that works, right? So there you go, is a great example there too why an array is nice, because we can't really print those easily without it being stored as an array. Now we can go like this and say my even 0, and then we say even 0, and so on and so forth, right? Let's see if we can be fancy here. Yep. Okay, so that's the equivalent here of what's happening here in this loop using an array. Right? You can kind of start to see why it's nice to have an array. It can be confusing, but it keeps everything compact and portable, and things of you know, similar nature will go together, and you get essentially the same result, right? So you're printing all these out. So imagine you had 100 numbers that you needed to keep together, right? How long would your code have to be doing this? You know, it would just take a crazy amount of time. So it just isn't practical. Can become very impractical, especially for the size of very large programs. So hopefully that makes sense as to what an array is and why it's used, right? It is to hold many like values that for one reason or another make sense to be together and at times treated as one thing. Oops. Okay, well, that introduction is kind of what I wanted to cover, just kind of what is an array, and hopefully that's simple enough for everyone to understand. And I'm going to do another one that's a little more complex that has to do with strings. So be sure to check that one out. Alrighty, well, thanks for stopping by. Appreciate it, and hopefully this was helpful. See you guys later.